The blood was black in the darkness. Not the bright arterial red that medical training shows you in clean diagrams with neat labels and sanitized margins, but black. The kind of black that comes when you are 600 yards from anything that matters and the temperature is 31 degrees and the wind coming off the Cascade Range has never learned the meaning of mercy. Maya Reeves knew this. She had known it since she was 9 years old, kneeling beside her father in the pre-dawn dark of a Montana field, watching a white-tailed deer go still in the frost-covered grass 300 yards away. Her father had looked down at her, his breath fogging in the cold air between them, and said something she had never forgotten. The field doesn't care how small you are. It only cares whether you're steady. She was steady now. She had to be. Her left arm had been hit somewhere between the shoulder and the elbow. Through and through, she was almost certain, which meant the bone was probably intact, which meant she could still function, which meant she had no excuse to stop functioning. The pain was there. She acknowledged it the way you acknowledge a dog barking 2 streets over. Present, noted, not relevant. The rifle rested on cold stone. The scope showed her everything she needed to see. 600 yards down the mountain, men were moving. They wore the wrong uniforms and carried the wrong weapons, and they were looking for her in all the wrong places, which was exactly how she had planned it. The radio on her vest crackled with static. Marcus Cross's voice came through, low and controlled, the voice of a man who had spent 19 years in naval special warfare and had learned that panic was a choice you could simply decide not to make. Phantom, acknowledge. She did not answer. She breathed instead. 4 seconds in, 7 hold, 8 out. The rhythm her father had taught her when she was 12 and had broken 2 fingers on the ice, and had learned that pain was just information and you could choose what to do with information. She fired. The sound was swallowed by the mountain. The man 600 yards away dropped like someone had cut his strings. The radio crackled again. Phantom. She still did not answer. She was already moving. Fire and vanish, her father had said. If they know where you are, you're already dead. She vanished. 72 hours earlier, the world had looked different. Brighter, louder, more certain about things that were not certain at all. The Chinook came in low over the Cascade Range at 700 hours. Rotor wash kicking up red dust that turned the morning light amber and made everyone on the landing zone squint and turn their heads. The forward operating base was not much. 4 prefabricated structures bolted to a hillside like an afterthought. A communications antenna, a fuel bladder, a plywood board nailed to one of the walls that someone had written "Welcome to Paradise" on in black marker, because humor in isolated places tends toward the sardonic. The elevation was roughly 8,000 feet, which meant the air had the thin, sharp quality of something that had not fully committed to sustaining human life. Alpha Team had been here for 6 days. They were used to it. What they were not used to was the addition. Maya Reeves stepped off the ramp at 700 hours, carrying a medical bag on one shoulder and a backpack on the other. She was 5'4" and weighed 118 pounds in full kit, which did not look like enough until you watched her move. She wore no rank insignia beyond the basic identifier of her rate. No name tape, no unit patch, just the plain tan of someone who did not want to be remembered. She moved through the rotor wash with her head slightly down and her eyes taking in the perimeter with the quiet, thorough practice of someone conducting an assessment they did not need anyone to know they were conducting. Cole Briggs saw her first. Briggs was 32 years old and had a gift for saying out loud what other people kept to themselves, and he exercised this gift with considerable consistency. He was leaning against the wall of the operations building with his arms crossed, watching her walk across the landing pad. When she got close enough, he looked at her the way someone looks at a forecast that does not match the season. "We got a field medic," he said to nobody in particular. "Great. Who's next, the cook?" The woman did not look at him. She did not change her pace. She walked past him and into the operations building as if he had not spoken, which was arguably the most effective response she could have given. Briggs watched her go. His expression suggested he was recalibrating something slowly and against his preferences. "Friendly," he said. Inside, Marcus Cross was standing over the planning table with Chief Doyle Mitchell, reviewing the route. Marcus was 48 years old, 6'2", with 19 years of naval special warfare printed into the way he held himself. The slight forward lean, the weight distributed across the balls of his feet even at rest. The eyes that never stopped moving even when the rest of him was perfectly still. Doyle Mitchell was 41 years old, quiet in the way that deep water is quiet, and had been with Marcus long enough that the two of them communicated in partial sentences and shared silences that meant more than most people's paragraphs. He looked up when she came in and said nothing, which for Mitchell constituted a complete assessment. She set her bags down, pulled out a tablet and a manila folder, looked at the map on the table. Maya Reeves, she said, medical liaison, trauma support. Marcus looked at her. We've been briefed. Not unfriendly, not welcoming, measured. The way a man who has learned that most problems announce themselves early will measure new variables. Good, she said. That was it. That was her entire introduction. Marcus would later say that the thing that stayed with him about that first moment was not anything she said, it was what she looked at. When she scanned the map, her eyes paused for exactly 3 seconds on a particular ridgeline to the east of the target compound. Not the approach vector, not the exfiltration route, the ridgeline, the high ground with the best angles of observation. A medical liaison would have looked at the compound. She looked at the ridge. He filed it away. The mission itself had the shape of something straightforward, which in Marcus's experience meant it was time to look harder. The briefing came through at 1400 hours on a secure laptop connection. The face on the screen belonged to Director Warren Caldwell, 60 years old, CIA Deputy Director for Operations, a man who spoke in the measured cadences of someone who had never made an imprecise statement in his professional life. His voice was calm and even and certain. The target is Dr. Viktor Sokolov, age 57, former KGB, operates as an independent broker now. Intelligence suggests he's preparing to sell classified information to parties unknown. Information about American operations, about assets still active in the field. Caldwell paused. The pause had weight. You have a 24-hour window. Neutralize the target. Recover whatever materials he's prepared. Clean exit. Authorization code Sierra 7 actual. Briggs leaned forward. Neutralize meaning what exactly? Caldwell's expression did not change. Lethal force authorized. Marcus glanced at the woman standing to his left. Maya Reeves had not moved. Her face showed nothing. Not agreement, not disagreement. Just the flat, neutral attention of someone who was listening and processing and not yet deciding what any of it meant. The briefing ended. The laptop closed. The room was quiet for a moment. Briggs looked at the closed screen, then at the door Maya had walked through. Why do we need a medical liaison on a direct action op? Standard procedure for this classification, Marcus said. Non-negotiable. Briggs did not look satisfied, but Briggs rarely did. After everyone left, Mitchell stayed behind. He looked at the closed laptop for a moment, then at the door. She looked at the East Ridge, he said. I know, Marcus said. Medical liaisons look at the target. I know, Marcus said again. Neither of them said anything else. But the silence between them was not empty. It was the kind of silence that happens when two people who have worked together long enough to trust each other's instincts are both seeing the same thing and are both choosing to wait before naming it. The hour before they moved out was the hour that mattered most. Maya Reeves spent it the way she spent every hour before movement, checking her medical kit with a thoroughness that had nothing to do with anxiety and everything to do with the understanding that the difference between a good outcome and a catastrophic one was usually something very small that someone had failed to check. This was also the hour that saved Jake Aldridge. Specialist Jake Aldridge was 29 years old, broad across the shoulders, and had the particular kind of physical confidence that comes from having been the most capable person in almost every room he had entered since the age of 17. He was also at this specific moment in the early stages of exertional heat illness, which he did not know and which nobody else on the team had noticed. Maya noticed. She had been moving through the staging area when she saw him sitting on an equipment case, drinking water in the methodical way that people drink water when their body is processing an alarm signal and they have not yet consciously received the message. His skin had a particular sheen. The color at the base of his neck was wrong. His movements when he stood to adjust his kit had a very slight lag that would not have been visible to anyone not specifically trained to look for it. She set her bag down next to him. Sir, she said, may I check something? He looked at her with the expression that large, capable men sometimes produce when presented with a request from someone much smaller than themselves, who they have not yet established a reason to take seriously. I'm fine, Doc. I know, she said, and checked his pulse anyway. What followed was 4 minutes of work that Marcus watched from across the staging area without moving. She ran through the assessment with an economy of motion that he recognized not from medical training, but from the field. From the way people moved when they had done something so many times, that it had stopped being a procedure and had become instead a reflex. IV kit, fluids, cooling protocol. She spoke to Aldridge in a low, steady voice, telling him exactly what she was doing and why. By the end of it, he was sitting straighter and his color was coming back, and he was looking at her with an expression that had changed considerably from the one he had started with. Marcus walked over when she was packing up. "Caught it early," she said without looking up. "He'll be at full capacity in 30 minutes. I'd recommend he hydrate aggressively for the next 2 hours before movement." How bad would it have been? She considered this. Moderate to severe, probably by kilometer 4. She zipped the kit. Kilometer 4 is where the grade increases. That's where it would have presented. Marcus looked at Aldridge, then back at her. "Good catch." "Thank you, sir." She picked up her bags and moved on. Behind her, Mitchell appeared at Marcus's shoulder. He did not say anything. He did not need to. What Mitchell had seen, and only Mitchell because he had been standing at the right angle, was the moment after she finished with Aldridge's IV. Her hand had briefly come to rest on the grip of Aldridge's sidearm where it sat holstered beside her. Not intentionally, muscle memory, her fingers had settled onto the grip with the unconscious precision of something very old. And then in the span of a single breath, she had pulled them away. Her face had not changed. She had not noticed that she had done it, or had noticed and decided it did not matter, which was its own kind of information. Mitchell filed it away with the ridgeline. Briggs, from 20 feet away, had watched her work on Aldridge with his arms crossed in an expression that suggested he was recalibrating something slowly and against his preferences. "Fine," he said mostly to himself. "She's a good doc, still doesn't explain why she's here." They moved at 2200 hours, 11 kilometers of mountain terrain, no vehicle support, full kit, darkness. The Cascade Range does not accommodate movement. It permits it grudgingly, on terms it sets unilaterally. The ground was loose shale in some places and compressed granite in others, and the distinction mattered because loose shale announced you and compressed granite could fracture under weight if you hit it wrong. Night vision turned the world green and flat, collapsing depth perception at the exact moments when depth perception was most necessary. Maya moved third in the column. Mitchell was behind her. He watched her feet. In 11 years of special operations service, Doyle Mitchell had walked a very large number of kilometers in very difficult terrain, and he had learned things about movement that could not be found in any manual. One of those things was that footfall pattern told you more about a person than almost anything they might choose to say about themselves. Where you put your foot, how much weight you committed before transferring, how you adjusted when the ground changed unexpectedly. These things came from somewhere deeper than training. They came from years. She was placing her feet in the footprints of the man ahead of her. Exactly, not approximately, exactly, which was a counter-tracking technique that took most people months to develop into unconscious habit. She was doing it without appearing to think about it. She also read the ground ahead in the extended, continuous way of someone assessing her attention, moving in arcs, checking high ground and shadow pockets in the spaces between rocks that could hold a person if a person wanted to be held. At the 3-kilometer mark, they stopped at a natural halt in a fold of the ridge for a scheduled rest. Marcus moved forward to check the point element. Briggs found a rock to sit on. Ethan Harper, the team medic, ran a quick check on everyone's status. Maya sat apart from the group, facing north, looking at the darkness. Mitchell sat down beside her. She glanced at him but said nothing. He said nothing either. For a minute, they both looked at the same darkness. "First time in country?" he said after a pause. "No." The way she said it, not dismissive, not guarded, just factual. The way you state something that is not worth elaborating on. It told him more than the word itself. "You move like you've done this before." "My father taught me to walk carefully." It was not an answer to what he had said, but it was something. Before he could follow it anywhere, Marcus gave the hand signal to move. They stood up and became part of the darkness again. 6 kilometers to go. The mountain said nothing. The wind said less. The compound sat in a shallow depression between 2 ridges, positioned in the way that someone tactically trained had positioned it, natural observation angles limited, main approach requiring a 500-meter exposed crossing. It was a modest structure, mud walls, a main building, a smaller outbuilding to the north with a single low antenna on the roof. They reached the observation point at 0340 hours. The ridgeline offered good concealment and a clean line of sight to the entire compound. Marcus set up with his binos, Mitchell beside him, Maya on his other side doing the same. "Count," Marcus said quietly. 8 at minimum, Mitchell said. Position professionally. These aren't militia. No, Marcus said. They're not. Maya said nothing. She was looking at the north outbuilding, the one with the antenna. A light was on inside. Not the bright light of someone unconcerned, but the low specific glow of electronics in a darkened room. Someone was awake. Someone was working. The target is in the north structure, she said, not the main building. Marcus looked at her. How do you know that? The antenna placement, the light frequency. Someone is running equipment in there. Not sleeping. She lowered her binos. He's getting ready. Marcus held her eyes for a moment. Something moved behind his expression that he did not show. He turned back to the compound. We go at 0400. Mitchell and Stokes, western approach. Harper, you're with Aldridge on South Exville. Briggs, north approach with me. He paused. His next words came with a weight that had not been there before. Miss Reeves, Eastern Ridge, Overwatch. She had been watching that ridge since she had looked at the map 2 days ago. Copy, she said. Briggs, lying to Marcus's left, did not look up from his own binos. You're putting the doc on a sniper position. I'm putting the person with the best terrain read on the position that requires it, Marcus said. His voice was entirely even. Briggs said nothing more. But in the silence that followed, something was adjusting. The early, reluctant beginning of a question he was not yet ready to ask. Maya moved to the eastern ridge alone. The approach took her 14 minutes. She used the natural folds in the terrain, staying low, moving only when the wind moved, which was an old trick her father had taught her when she was 11, and they were hunting elk in weather that changed every 20 minutes. When the wind talks, you listen. When the wind moves, you move. The rest of the time, you're a rock. She reached the position at 0352 hours, a natural depression between two large stones. Good concealment. Clear line of sight to the compound gate and the western approach in the north outbuilding where the light still glowed. She set down her pack. The medical bag went to one side within easy reach. Underneath it, in a separate compartment with a foam cutout measured to the millimeter, was the Remington 700 she had broken down and reassembled so many times in the dark that her hands knew the order of every component the way they knew the order of her own fingers. She assembled it now. 43 seconds, no wasted motion. The scope was a Night Force NXS, 5.5 to 22 power, 56 millimeters objective. She set it at 14 power for the current conditions. The elevation turret had a small strip of tape on the cap. Blue tape applied at a diagonal across the left corner. This was how her father had taped every rifle he had ever owned, so his thumb would find it in total darkness without searching. Always the same way, he had told her. Muscle memory in the dark. She had not changed it. 200 meters behind her, concealed in a cluster of rocks on higher ground, Doyle Mitchell watched her through his night vision optics. He was supposed to be watching the western approach, but for 30 seconds, he watched her instead. He watched her assemble the rifle. He watched her settle into position. He watched the way she tested the stone under the forearm of the weapon, adjusting twice until she found the angle that would give her the stability she needed. He watched the way her thumb came to rest on the elevation turret cap without looking, found the tape, the diagonal, and he stopped breathing for a moment because he had seen that before, that exact motion, that exact tape pattern. 2006, 2007. Every operation he had run with the Marines out of Kandahar province. There had been a MARSOC sniper attached to their unit for 11 months. Gunnery Sergeant, quiet, precise, the best shooter Mitchell had ever seen. Daniel Reeves. And Daniel Reeves had taped his rifles exactly like that, every single one. Blue tape diagonal across the turret cap so his thumb would find it in the dark. Mitchell lowered his optics. He looked at the woman on the ridge for a long time. Then he keyed his radio to the private channel he shared with Marcus. Chief, go. That turret cap. Blue tape diagonal. I've seen it before. Marcus did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice was very quiet. Where? Daniel Reeves used to tape his rifles exactly like that, every single one. 2006, 2007, every op. The radio was silent for 5 seconds. Then Marcus said one word. Confirmed, and nothing else. But Mitchell heard everything in that one word. The recognition, the calculation, the decision to wait. Because if what Mitchell was thinking was true, then everything about this operation was different from what they had been told. And if it was different, then the woman on the eastern ridge was not who she said she was. And if she was not who she said she was, then the question became very simple and very complicated at the same time. Who sent her? And why? At 03:59 hours, Marcus gave the ready signal. All elements acknowledged. Maya on the eastern ridge keyed her radio once. No words, just the double click that meant ready. She settled into the position, checked her breathing. 4 seconds in, 7 hold, 8 out. The compound below sat quietly in its hollow, lit by the cold precision of the stars. At 0400 hours exactly, the operation began. And for the first 2 minutes, everything went according to plan. Marcus and Briggs moved on the north approach. Mitchell and Stokes took the western wall. Harper and Aldridge held the south position for exfil. Then at 0402 hours, the plan stopped mattering. The first indication came not from the compound, but from the northeast. Movement on the ridgeline, 800 meters out. Fast, tactical. A vehicle, not one of theirs. Maya saw it first. Picked it up in her scope. Technical truck, mounted weapon, 4 personnel, moving fast across broken ground toward the compound. She keyed her sighting. All elements, be advised. Vehicle inbound from northeast, 870 meters in closing. Marcus came back immediately. Can you engage? She ran the numbers. 870 meters. Downhill angle approximately 4 degrees. Target speed 30 miles per hour. Wind drift at this range in current conditions, 11 inches. The margin for error her father had always told her to allow was none. You don't miss in the field, he had said. Practice is where you miss. Affirm, she said. I have the shot. Negative, Marcus said. You're not cleared for lethal engagement. Medical liaison rules of engagement do not authorize. She fired. The sound rolled across the ridge and down into the valley and was swallowed by the mountain. The vehicle kept moving. Briggs came over the radio immediately. She missed. Maya did not respond. She was already running the correction. The round had broken, left 8 inches. The wind had shifted 2 knots in the last 90 seconds. A common event on mountain approaches after midnight. She adjusted the turret. Her thumb found the elevation cap in total darkness. Felt the tape at the diagonal. Always the same way. She breathed again. 4 seconds in, 7 hold, 8 out. When the trigger broke the second time, the vehicle lurched hard to the right and went into the drainage ditch at the edge of the compound wall and stopped. 4 seconds of silence so complete it had weight. Then Ethan Harper's voice, quiet and confused. What was that? Who just fired? Mitchell's voice came next, flat and controlled, eastern ridge. Then Marcus, also controlled, but with something in it that had not been there before. Something that was trying to understand what it had just witnessed. Miss Reeves, pause, report. Maya was already reloading. Target vehicle is down. Your western approach is clear. Move now before they reposition. A silence. Not a long one. Marcus was many things, and one of them was a man who did not waste seconds. Moving, he said. The team went into motion, fast and professional. They covered the distance to the compound wall in 40 seconds and held there, waiting for the next element to move. Maya watched from the ridge. She was tracking 3 additional points of possible contact. The main gate, the roof line of the north building, the open ground between the compound and the tree line to the south. Her heart rate was 62 beats per minute, steady, controlled, exactly where it needed to be. Below in the compound, Marcus and Briggs reached the north outbuilding. The door was unlocked. They went in fast and low and found exactly what Maya had told them they would find. Viktor Sokolov, age 57, sitting at a folding table with a laptop and 3 external hard drives, in the expression of a man who had been waiting a very long time for something and was not entirely certain that something was going to arrive before something worse did. He looked up when his door opened, looked at Marcus, looked at Briggs, looked at the weapons they carried. Then he looked past them at the open door and said in accented but precise English, "Where is the woman?" Marcus said, "On the ridge." Something in Sokolov's face changed. Not relief exactly. More like the confirmation of something he had been told to expect, but had not fully allowed himself to believe. Her father said she would come, Sokolov said. Marcus looked at him for a long moment. Then he looked at Briggs. Briggs looked at the hard drives on the table. And in that moment, standing in a mud-walled building on the side of a mountain in the Cascade Range, with a Russian defector who had just said something that made no sense at all, Marcus Cross understood 2 things with absolute clarity. First, that the woman on the eastern ridge was not a medical liaison. And second, that he had known this from the moment he saw her look at the map 2 days ago. He keyed his radio to the private channel. Mitchell, go. The tape on her rifle, you're certain? I'm certain. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he asked the question he already knew the answer to. Daniel Reeves had a daughter. Mitchell did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice carried the weight of old memory. Yes, he talked about her sometimes, said he was training her, teaching her everything he knew. Pause. Said she was 9 years old and could already shoot better than half the Marines in his platoon. Marcus did the math in his head. 2006 was 18 years ago. If she was 9 then, she would be 27 now. He looked at the hard drives on the table, at Sokolov, who was watching him with the patience of a man who had lived in the vicinity of dangerous truths for too long to be surprised by the slowness with which other people arrived at them. Marcus keyed his radio to the team channel. All elements, hold position. We have the target secured. Stand by for further instructions. Then he keyed the private channel to Maya. Sierra 2. She came back immediately. Go. We need to talk. She did not answer right away. Through his night vision optics, Marcus could see her on the ridge, could see her lower the rifle, could see her look down at the compound where he stood. When she spoke, her voice was steady and quiet and carried no emotion at all. After the exfil, she said, "We talk after." And then she was moving, not down toward them, north along the ridge line, 30 meters. Better cover, better angle on the northwest approach, because the operation was not over. It had barely begun. And Maya Reeves, whoever she actually was not leaving her position until it was finished. Marcus stood in the north outbuilding with a Russian defector and 3 hard drives full of information he had not been briefed on, and a growing certainty that nothing about this mission was what he had been told. He looked at Sokolov. "Start talking," he said. And Viktor Sokolov, who had been waiting for this moment for a very long time, opened the first hard drive and began to explain exactly why 34 Americans had died between 2006 and 2007, and why the man who had sent Alpha Team on this mission wanted him dead. On the eastern ridge, Maya Reeves lay on cold stone with her father's rifle and watched the darkness and thought about nothing at all. The past was the past. The mission was the mission. The ridge was the ridge. She was ready. She had been ready for 17 years. And the night was just getting started. Viktor Sokolov had the kind of face that holds secrets the way old wood holds water, deep in the grain, impossible to extract without destroying the structure entirely. He sat at the folding table in the north outbuilding with his hands resting on either side of the laptop, like a man preparing to play a musical instrument he had not touched in many years. The light from the screen turned his face blue and made the shadows under his eyes look like bruises. Marcus Cross stood 6 feet away with his rifle lowered, but not slung. Briggs was at the door, watching the compound yard through a crack in the frame. Outside, the mountain was silent in the way that mountains are silent when men with guns are deciding whether other men with guns will live or die. "Start talking," Marcus said. Sokolov looked at him for a long moment. Then he touched the keyboard and the first file opened. "What I am about to show you," Sokolov said, his accent making the words precise and formal, "will change how you see everything that has happened in the last 18 years. Everything you were told about this mission. Everything you were told about me." He turned the laptop so Marcus could see the screen. "In 2006, your government paid me $2.3 million. The payment came through a shell corporation in Cyprus. The authorization came from a CIA officer operating out of Kabul Station." Marcus looked at the screen. Bank transfer records, dates, account numbers, everything documented with the kind of meticulous care that suggested someone had been building a case. "Who authorized it?" Marcus said. Sokolov clicked to the next file. A scanned document, signature at the bottom. Warren Caldwell. The name sat in the air between them like something physical, something with weight and edges. Briggs turned from the door. "That's the man who briefed us. That's the man who sent us here." "Yes," Sokolov said, "the same man." Marcus was quiet for a moment. He was running calculations, probabilities, threat assessments, all the things you learn to do automatically after 19 years of making decisions where being wrong means people die. "Why did he pay you?" Sokolov smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who has been waiting a very long time to tell a truth that no one wanted to hear. "He did not pay me," Sokolov said. "The SVR paid me, Russian Foreign Intelligence. The money was routed through Caldwell's accounts to make it look like an American operation. But the source was Moscow." He clicked to another file, communications logs, encrypted messages, meeting locations. For 11 years, Warren Caldwell has been selling American intelligence operations to the SVR. Not all of them, just enough, just the ones that would not be missed immediately, the ones where failure could be explained as bad luck or poor intelligence or the fog of war. How many operations? Marcus said. Sokolov looked at him with the steady patience of a man who has already counted the cost. 17, he said. Between 2006 and 2017, 17 operations compromised, 34 Americans killed. Not all at once, spread over years, enough time between each one that no pattern emerged. No investigation was triggered. The room was very quiet. And you have proof of all this? Marcus said. It was not a question. Sokolov gestured into the hard drives on the table. Everything. Bank records, communication intercepts, photographs of Caldwell meeting with his SVR handler in Prague, in Vienna, in Istanbul. Names of the operations that were compromised. Names of the Americans who died. He paused. And the name of the one American who discovered it in 2006 and tried to stop it. Marcus already knew what name was coming. He had known since the moment Sokolov said her father said she would come. Daniel Reeves, Marcus said. Yes, tell me. Sokolov leaned back in his chair. The light from the laptop made him look older than he was, tired in a way that sleep would not fix. Gunnery Sergeant Daniel Reeves was MARSOC, scout sniper, attached to a joint task force operating out of Kandahar in 2006. He found the first anomaly in March of that year, a payment that did not match any known operational budget. He was good with details, good with numbers. He followed the money. Sokolov clicked through several more files. He came to me because I knew the architecture of Russian intelligence financing from my time in KGB. I confirmed the payment originated from SVR. We began building a case together. It took us 9 months. By December 2006, we had everything we needed. Bank records, operational details, enough to bring to your Inspector General. What happened? Marcus said, though he already knew. Had known since the moment he saw the tape on Maya's rifle. Sokolov's face hardened. Someone told Caldwell. We never knew who. Someone in the chain, someone Reeves trusted. In early February 2007, Reeves was sent on a mission. Classified, high-value target. Intelligence said the target would be alone with minimal security. The intelligence was wrong. Sokolov pulled up another file, after action report, heavily redacted. But the summary was clear enough. Ambush, 20 hostiles, no support element, no air cover. Reeves and his team were cut off. Extraction was delayed by equipment failure. By the time help arrived, Gunnery Sergeant Daniel Reeves was dead. And the case he built, Marcus said, disappeared. Every file, every piece of evidence, gone. The only thing that survived was this. Sokolov held up a small USB drive. Reeves gave this to me 2 days before his last mission. He said, do not give this to anyone. Not authorities, not military, not even Marcus Cross, only my daughter, only when she is finished. What's on it? Everything he wanted you to know. Things he did not put in the letter because letters can be read by the wrong people. Things he did not put in the evidence because they were personal. He held it out. He loved you very much. More than the mission. More than the evidence. More than justice. He made me promise I would tell you that you were not the second choice. You were always the first choice. The mission was just what he did while he was waiting to come home to you. How did he know? Because he was not just training her to shoot, Sokolov said quietly. He was training her to survive him. The radio on Marcus's vest crackled. Mitchell's voice, low and controlled. Chief, we have movement. Northwest quadrant. Multiple vehicles. Closing fast. Marcus keyed his radio. How many? 3, maybe 4. Not local. These are professionals. Ita. 8 minutes. Marcus looked at Sokolov. The transmission window. When does it open? Sokolov checked his watch. 1 hour and 43 minutes. Marcus did the math. They could not hold for that long. Not against a professional force with vehicles and crew served weapons. Not in a compound with walls made of mud brick and no air support. He keyed his radio to the eastern ridge. Sierra 2, Maya's voice came back immediately. Go. We have hostiles inbound, multiple vehicles. Northwest approach. Can you engage? There was a pause. Not long, maybe 2 seconds. But in those 2 seconds, Marcus heard her running the same calculations he had just run. Distance, wind, light conditions, probability of success. Affirm, she said. I have eyes on. Rules of engagement? There was something in the way Marcus asked it, not quite a question. More like an acknowledgement, an understanding that the pretense of her being a medical liaison was over, and whatever was about to happen next would require her to be something else entirely. Weapons free, he said. Engage at your discretion. Copy. And then she was gone from the radio, back into the work. On the eastern ridge, East Ridge, Maya Reeves adjusted her position, moved north 30 meters along the spine of the ridge to where the angle was cleaner and the background less likely to silhouette her against the sky. The vehicles were visible now through her scope. 3 technicals, mounted weapons, personnel in the beds, moving in tactical formation with the kind of spacing that suggested they had done this before. She ranged the lead vehicle, 820 meters. Moving target, crosswind from the west at 6 knots, downhill angle. She ran the corrections, adjusted the turret. Her thumb found the blue tape in the dark, always the same way. The first shot was for the driver, center mass through the windshield. She breathed, 4 in, 7 hold, 8 out. Fired. The vehicle lurched left, overcorrected, went into the ditch hard enough that the mounted gunner was thrown clear. She was already tracking the second vehicle, 730 meters now, closing fast. This shot was harder. The driver was good. He saw the first vehicle go down and immediately started weaving. Unpredictable, making himself a harder target. But unpredictable to a computer is one thing. Unpredictable to a human being who has spent 18 years learning to read intention and movement is something else. Maya watched him weave, counted the pattern, 3 seconds left, 2 seconds right, predictable in his unpredictability. She waited for the left, fired. The round took the engine block, not the driver, the engine. The vehicle coughed smoke and slowed and stopped. The third vehicle saw what happened to the first 2 and did the smart thing. It stopped advancing, took cover behind a rock formation, waited. Maya keyed her radio, lead vehicle disabled, second vehicle disabled, third vehicle holding position behind cover. You have a window, but it won't last. Marcus came back immediately. Copy, moving now. But they were not moving fast enough. Because while Maya had been engaging the vehicles from the northwest, something else had been happening on the northeast ridge. Something she had not seen. The muzzle flash came from 940 meters away. A brief orange bloom in the darkness that her peripheral vision caught half a second before the round arrived. The impact was enormous. Not painful at first. Just pressure. Like being hit with something very heavy moving very fast. Her left arm, high on the forearm, entry wound on the lateral side. She processed this information with the clinical detachment of someone who has been trained to treat trauma and knows exactly what questions to ask. Can I feel my fingers? Yes. Can I move my hand? Yes, but reduce strength. Is there arterial bleeding? No, venous bleeding. Controllable. Is the bone intact? Probably. Through and through. If the bone was shattered, I would not have this much function. Time to treatment? Now. She rolled into cover, not away from the fight. Deeper into it, behind a rock formation that would shield her from the northeast ridge while still giving her line of sight to the compound. The medical kit was in her pack. She pulled it with her right hand. Everything she needed was in the top compartment because she had packed it, knowing that someday she might need to treat herself with one hand. Hemostatic gauze first, packed into the wound. The pain was considerable now, sharp and insistent. She acknowledged it the way her father had taught her. Pain is just your body telling you something is wrong. You already know something is wrong. Thank your body for the information and get back to work. She packed the gauze, wrapped it with compression bandage, used her teeth to hold one end while her right hand pulled tight, tied it off. 45 seconds from impact to bandaged. Not her best time, but acceptable given the circumstances. She picked up the rifle with her right hand, tested the position. The left arm could not support the weapon anymore, but she did not need it to. The rock formation provided a natural rest. The rifle settled into the gap with the stability of something that had been designed for exactly this purpose. She found the northeast ridge through her scope, scanned for the counter sniper. There, in the rocks above the drainage channel, small movement, the slight shift of someone repositioning after a shot. 940 meters, no wind, uphill angle now, which meant the round would impact low if she did not correct. She corrected, breathed, fired. The movement in the rock stopped. She waited 10 seconds, 20. No further movement. Counter sniper neutralized. She keyed her radio with her chin, pressing the transmit button against her shoulder since her left hand was not working properly anymore. Sierra 2 to all elements. Left arm compromised. Bleeding controlled. Counter sniper down. You have 8 minutes before the next wave. Ethan Harper's voice came back immediately. Sierra 2, you need immediate medical evac. That wound needs surgical attention. Negative, she said. I hold this position until transmission completes. There was a pause on the radio, then Marcus's voice. Sierra 2, this is Cross. Confirm you can continue mission. She looked down at her left arm. The compression bandage was already showing red at the edges where the bleeding had soaked through. The pain was significant. A 7 out of 10 and climbing. In 2 hours, it would be a 9. In 4 hours, she would start losing fine motor control in her fingers, even if the bandage held. But the transmission window opened in 1 hour and 37 minutes, and she had not come this far to leave early. Affirm, she said, I can continue. Another pause, then Marcus said something she would remember for the rest of her life. Your father would be proud. She did not answer. She was already tracking the next threat. In the compound, Marcus ended the radio call and looked at Sokolov. She's hit, I heard. How long until transmission? 1 hour, 36 minutes. Marcus looked at Briggs. Briggs looked back at him with the expression of a man who had stopped questioning what was happening and started accepting it. We hold, Marcus said, for 96 minutes, for however long it takes. Briggs nodded. Then we hold. Marcus keyed his radio to the team channel. All elements, we are now in a defensive posture. Transmission window opens in 96 minutes. We hold this position until the package is sent. No exceptions. He looked at the hard drives on the table, at the evidence that would end Warren Caldwell's career and probably his life, at the proof that 34 Americans had died not because of bad luck or poor intelligence, but because one man had sold them. And he understood with absolute clarity that the woman on the Eastern Ridge was not here for money or for orders or for any of the reasons that normally bring people to mountains in the middle of the night with rifles. She was here because 17 years ago her father had died trying to stop something evil, and she had spent every day since then preparing to finish what he started. He keyed his radio to her channel. Private, just the two of them. Sierra 2, go. I know who you are. There was a long pause. When she spoke, her voice was quiet. I know you do. Daniel Reeves was a good man. Yes, he was. I served with him. 2006. 7 months in Kandahar. He saved my life twice. Never asked for anything in return. Never even mentioned it. Maya did not respond. Marcus continued. He told me once that he had a daughter. Said he was teaching her everything he knew. Said someday she would be better than he ever was. Another pause. He was right. The radio went quiet. Marcus thought she might say something, but she did not. Some things do not require words. He turned to Sokolov. Show me everything. I want to see all of it. Every operation, every payment, every American who died. I want to know what we're protecting. For the next 30 minutes, Viktor Sokolov walked Marcus Cross through 17 years of treason. He showed him the bank records, the communication logs, the photographs of Caldwell meeting with his SVR handler in cities across Europe. He showed him the names of the operations that had been compromised and the names of the Americans who had died because of it. Marcus recognized some of the names. He had known 3 of the men personally. Good operators, solid professionals. They had died in ambushes that intelligence said should never have happened. Now he knew why the intelligence had been wrong. Outside, the mountain was getting lighter. Not true dawn yet, but the pale gray that comes before it. The kind of light that makes everything look like it belongs to a different world. Mitchell's voice came over the radio. Chief, movement on the northwest perimeter. They're repositioning. Looks like they're getting ready for another push. How many? 12. Maybe 15. Professional spacing. These aren't contractors anymore. Marcus looked at his watch. 47 minutes until transmission window. Copy. Hold your position. Do not engage unless they breach the perimeter. He keyed to Maya's channel. Sierra 2, be advised we have multiple hostiles repositioning northwest. They're preparing for a coordinated assault. I see them, she said. Can you slow them down? There was a pause while she assessed. I have 3 rounds left. 3. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. 3 rounds against 12 to 15 professionals. The math was not good. Make them count, he said. Copy. On the ridge, Maya Reeves looked down at her rifle. The magazine held 3 rounds. She had fired 11 since the operation began. 11 shots that had disabled 2 vehicles, killed a counter-sniper, and kept the team alive long enough to get this far. 3 rounds left. Her father had taught her a saying when she was 14 and learning to hunt elk in Montana. They had been tracking a bull for 6 hours through snow, and her feet were numb and her hands were shaking from cold, and she had asked him how many rounds she should load. 1, he had said. If you need more than 1, you're not doing it right. She smiled at the memory, then she looked through her scope at the 15 men moving into position below. 1 round per target meant she could stop 3 of them. Maybe 4 if the spacing was right and she could make one shot do double work. But 15 minus 4 still left 11. And 11 professionals with crew-served weapons against 4 SEALs in a mud-walled compound was not a fight that ended well. Unless she looked at the terrain, at the way the hostiles were moving, at the natural choke point they would have to pass through to get to the compound. And she saw it, the propane tank. It was sitting against the west wall of the main building, civilian size, probably used for cooking or heating. Maybe 100 pounds of compressed gas. She ranged it, 480 meters, stationary target, no wind compensation needed. If she could hit it, if the round had enough energy left at that range to rupture the tank, if the gas ignited instead of just venting. A lot of ifs, but 3 rounds against 15 men had a lot of ifs too, and none of them ended with the transmission completing. She made the decision, keyed her radio to Marcus. "Chief, I need you to clear the west side of the compound. Now." "Why?" "Just trust me." There was no pause this time. He had seen what she could do. He had seen her make an 870-meter shot on a moving vehicle with a weapon she had assembled in the dark. If she said clear of the west side, there was a reason. "All elements," Marcus said. "Clear the west wall. Move to east side positions. Execute now." She waited while they moved. Counted to 10, confirmed through her scope that the west side was empty. The hostiles were 300 meters from the compound now, moving in fire team rushes, covered by their crew-served weapon in the back. She found the propane tank in her scope, made the corrections, adjusted for the distance and the angle and the fact that her left arm was now completely useless, and the pain was climbing past 8 on the way to 9. She breathed, 4 in, 7 hold, 8 out. Fired. The round hit the tank high on the shoulder where the metal was thinnest. Punched through. The compressed gas vented in a white cloud. For 2 seconds, nothing happened. Then the cloud found the pilot light from the building's heating system, and the world turned orange. The explosion was not as large as a military demolition would have been, but it was large enough. The concussive wave knocked 3 of the hostiles off their feet. The fireball engulfed 2 more. The rest scattered, taking cover, their coordinated assault suddenly broken into confused individual movement. Maya did not wait. She tracked the crew-served weapon operator. He was trying to reorient, trying to find what had just happened. She gave him 6 seconds to figure it out. Then she fired her second to last round. He went down. The hostile force was in chaos now. No coordination, no fire discipline. They were shooting at shadows because they could not find the source of the shots that had just destroyed their attack. Maya found their leader. He was the one moving with purpose while everyone else was reacting, the one trying to restore order. She put her crosshairs on his chest. Last round, breathed, fired. He dropped. Rifle empty. She set it down with the careful, deliberate motion of someone setting down something precious. Then she pulled her father's Ka-bar knife from her belt and waited. In the compound, Marcus watched the hostile force break apart and retreat. Watched them drag their wounded back toward the vehicles. Watched them disappear into the mountain. He keyed his radio to Maya. "Sierra 2, confirm status." "Winchester," she said, "out of ammunition." "Casualties on the hostile force?" 4 confirmed, maybe 5. The rest withdrew. He looked at his watch. 23 minutes until transmission window. "Outstanding work," he said. She did not respond. She was watching the northwest approach, watching for signs of a second wave. But there was no second wave. Not yet. The hostiles had been hit harder than they expected. They needed time to regroup, time to figure out what had just happened. And in that time, in those 23 minutes, Viktor Sokolov opened the satellite transmission window and uploaded 17 years of evidence to secure servers in 3 different countries. The progress bar moved slowly, 8%, 12%, 20%. Marcus stood next to him and watched the numbers climb and thought about Daniel Reeves and the daughter he had trained and the justice that had taken 17 years to arrive. At 18 minutes, Caldwell called. The satellite phone on Marcus's vest buzzed. Encrypted line. Priority channel. Marcus looked at the screen, saw the caller ID. He answered. "Chief Cross," Caldwell said. His voice was calm, professional. The voice of a man who was used to giving orders that were followed without question. "Status report." "Target secured," Marcus said, preparing for extraction. There was a pause on the line. Not long, maybe half a second. But in that half second, Marcus heard the calculation happening, the assessment, the decision. "Change of mission," Caldwell said. "Terminate Sokolov on site. Sanitize all materials. Immediate exfil." "Sir, we have the target in custody. Protocol is to extract for debriefing." This is not a negotiation, Chief. You have new orders. Execute Sokolov. Destroy the hard drives. Exfil in 30 minutes. Confirm. Marcus looked at Sokolov, at the laptop where the progress bar was now at 47%, at the evidence that was uploading to servers that Caldwell could not touch. He looked at Briggs. Briggs was watching him, waiting. Marcus made a decision. Sir, he said, carefully, can you clarify the operational justification for terminating an intelligence asset before debrief? The justification is above your clearance level, Caldwell said. His voice had changed. Harder now. Less patient. Execute the order, Chief. What is Operation Shadowfall? Silence on the line. Complete silence. For 3 full seconds. Then Caldwell said very quietly, where did you hear that name? The hard drives, Marcus said. They reference Operation Shadowfall. Multiple times. What is it? More silence. Caldwell was doing math now. Probabilities. Exposure assessment. When he spoke again, his voice was different. No more pretense of professionalism. Just cold calculation. You have accessed classified materials without authorization, Chief Cross. That is a violation of your security clearance. I am ordering you to destroy those materials and terminate the source immediately. If you do not comply, you will be charged with treason. And if I do comply, Marcus said, then this conversation never happened. Marcus looked at the laptop, 63%. What did you do, sir? Caldwell laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. I survived, he said. For 20 years, I kept this country safe by doing the things no one else would do. I made the hard choices. I paid the prices that needed to be paid. And yes, sometimes that meant working with people we are not supposed to work with. Sometimes it meant sacrificing operations that were going to fail anyway. You sold us, Marcus said. I optimized, Caldwell said. I took money that was being wasted, and I used it to fund operations that actually mattered. I took intelligence from the Russians, and I fed them intelligence that hurt them more than it hurt us. I played the game better than anyone else in the agency. And the 34 Americans who died? Caldwell was quiet for a moment. Acceptable losses, he said finally. Marcus felt something cold settle into his chest. Something old and familiar. The feeling he got right before he did something that could not be undone. Gunnery Sergeant Daniel Reeves, he said. Was he an acceptable loss? Another pause, longer this time. Reeves was a problem, Caldwell said. He found things he should not have found. He asked questions he should not have asked. He would have destroyed everything I built. So yes, he was handled. You killed him. I authorized a mission with poor intelligence. What happened after that was not my responsibility. Marcus looked at the laptop. 81%. You sent us here to kill Sokolov because he has the proof. Very good, Chief. You're smarter than Reeves was. He never figured it out until it was too late. And the woman on the Eastern Ridge, Marcus said. What about her? What woman? Sierra 2, the medical liaison. There was a very long pause. What medical liaison? Caldwell said slowly. I did not authorize any medical liaison for this operation. And Marcus understood. Maya had not been sent by Caldwell. She had sent herself, had positioned herself on the team through channels that Caldwell did not control, had been invisible to him until this moment. And now Caldwell knew she existed. Who is she? Caldwell said. His voice was different now, sharp, focused. Marcus looked toward the Eastern Ridge where Maya Reeves lay with an empty rifle and a hole in her arm, and 17 years of her life leading to this moment. No one, Marcus said. Just a contractor, already exfilled. You're lying. Yes, sir, I am. Then Caldwell said something that made everything clear. I'm sending a second team, he said. They will arrive in 40 minutes. They have orders to sanitize the entire operation. That includes Sokolov. That includes the materials. And that includes anyone who has accessed those materials. He paused. Including you, Chief. The line went dead. Marcus stood holding the phone for a moment. Then he looked at Briggs. He's sending a kill team. How long? 40 minutes. The laptop showed 92%. We're not going to make it, Briggs said. Marcus looked at the screen, looked at the numbers climbing, looked at Sokolov, who sat very still and very quiet. Yes, we are, Marcus said. He keyed his radio to the team channel. All elements, be advised. Friendly exfil is canceled. Hostile reinforcements inbound. ETA 40 minutes. We hold until transmission completes, then we move on foot to alternate exfil point. He switched to Maya's channel. Sierra 2, you still with us? Her voice came back. Weaker than before, but steady. Still here. Caldwell knows about you. I know. He's sending a team to kill everyone who has seen the evidence. I know that too. Can you move? There was a pause. He heard her breathing, heard the effort it took. Not well, she said, but I can shoot. You're out of ammunition. I know. Marcus looked at Mitchell, who was standing at the door. Mitchell looked back at him with the steady patience of a man who has been in worse situations and survived them all. Chief Mitchell will come to you, Marcus said. He'll bring ammunition and medical supplies. You hold that ridge until we exfil. There was a long pause. Then Maya said something that Marcus would remember for the rest of his life. My father held worse with less, she said. I'll hold. The transmission completed at 97 minutes, 100%. Upload successful. Sokolov closed the laptop with both hands and sat back and let out a breath that he had been holding in various senses for 9 years. Done, he said. Marcus looked at him. All of it? Everything. 3 separate servers, encrypted, redundant. Even if Caldwell finds one, the others survive. He smiled. It was a tired smile, but a real one. Your father would be proud, he said to the woman who was not there to hear it. They moved out at 101 minutes. 4 men carrying 1 Russian defector and 3 hard drives, in the certain knowledge that when they reached safety, the world would be different. On the eastern ridge, Maya Reeves waited. Mitchell arrived 12 minutes later with ammunition and fresh bandages and the quiet professional competence of a man who had done this many times before. He did not ask if she was okay. He could see she was not okay. He just set down the ammunition and started treating her arm. You're Daniel Reeves's daughter, he said while he worked. Yes, he was the best shooter I ever served with. Thank you. You're better. She looked at him. He was not smiling. He was not flattering her. He was stating a fact. He taught me well, she said. Mitchell finished the bandage, loaded her rifle with the ammunition he had brought, set it next to her. The team that's coming, he said, they're not regular contractors. These are Tier 1 operators. Former Delta, they know what they're doing. I know. Can you hold? She looked down at the compound, at the ridgeline, at the mountain. My father died here, she said. Not here exactly, but close enough. He died because one man decided 34 lives were acceptable losses. She picked up the rifle with her right hand, tested the weight. I'm not leaving until that man pays. Mitchell nodded. He stood to go. Then he stopped and looked back at her. Your father, he said. That last operation. I was on the quick reaction force. We got there 20 minutes too late. Found him in a drainage ditch. He was still holding his rifle, still had his thumb on the turret cap. He paused. Blue tape, diagonal, just like yours. Maya did not say anything. We brought him home, Mitchell said. Full honors. They gave him a medal, but they never presented it because the mission was classified. Your commander has it. Marcus. He's been carrying it for 17 years, waiting for the right time to give it to you. He turned to go. Stay alive long enough to receive it, he said. Then he was gone. Maya sat alone on the ridge and looked at the darkness that was slowly becoming light and thought about her father and the rifle and the blue tape diagonal across the turret cap. Always the same way. She was ready. The second team arrived 38 minutes later. 12 operators, former Delta, moving with the silent professional precision of men who had done this enough times that it was no longer exciting or frightening or anything except work. They came from 3 directions. 4 from the northwest, 4 from the northeast, 4 from the south. Maya saw them coming before they reached weapons range. She keyed her radio to Marcus. Chief, be advised. Second team has arrived. 12 operators. 3 elements. Converging on compound. Copy, Marcus said. Can you engage? She looked at her left arm. The bandage Mitchell had applied was already showing red. The pain was past 9 now, approaching the threshold where conscious thought became difficult. But she had ammunition, and she had position, and she had 17 years of her father's training running through her like electricity. Affirm, she said. The first shot was at 640 meters. Northeast element, lead operator. She breathed, fired. He went down. The other operators scattered, took cover, started scanning for the source of the shot. She was already tracking the second target, northwest element, the one moving with purpose. The leader, 620 meters, moving target. She waited for him to pause, to make a decision, to commit. He paused. She fired. He dropped. Now they knew where she was. Now they were returning fire, rounds impacting the rocks around her position. Professional fire. Disciplined, not panic shooting. Fire designed to suppress while other elements maneuvered. She moved north along the ridge, 30 meters, new position. Found the third target, south element, the machine gunner, 580 meters. Fired. The machine gun went silent. She had bought the team maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 if the operators decided to be careful. But there were still 9 of them, and one of her and her left arm was useless. and the pain was making it hard to focus. She settled into the new position and waited for the next target to present itself. And while she waited, she thought about her father and the last thing he had ever said to her. She had been 17. He was leaving for deployment. Standing in the driveway of their house in Montana with his deployment bag and his rifle case and the particular expression that soldiers get when they are leaving for something they might not come back from. "Stay precise," he had said. That was all. Just those two words. She had not understood then what he meant. She understood now. Precision was not about shooting. Precision was about everything. Every decision, every movement, every breath. Her father had lived precisely, had died precisely, had left her a precise set of instructions to follow, and she was following them now. She found the fourth target, breathed, fired, precise. The battle for the compound lasted 43 more minutes, and when it was over, 9 former Delta operators were dead or wounded, and Maya Reeves was unconscious from blood loss on the eastern ridge with an empty rifle and her father's dog tag still around her neck. Mitchell found her there when the medevac helicopter finally arrived. He checked her pulse, still alive, barely. He picked her up, carried her down the ridge, put her on the helicopter. Marcus was already aboard. He looked at her pale face, at the blood-soaked bandage, at the dog tags. He reached into his vest and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside was a Medal of Honor that had never been officially presented. He placed it in her right hand, closed her fingers around it. "Your father's," he said to her unconscious form, "and yours." The helicopter lifted off. Below, the Cascade Range fell away into morning light. Somewhere in Virginia, Warren Caldwell was receiving a phone call that would change his life. Somewhere in Washington, senators were opening encrypted files on their secure computers. Somewhere in Moscow, an SVR handler was learning that his American asset had just been burned. But on the helicopter, none of that mattered yet. All that mattered was a woman with a hole in her arm and a medal in her hand, and 17 years of her father's legacy finally complete. Marcus looked down at her. "Welcome home, Phantom," he said. And the mountain, indifferent and eternal, watched them go. The hospital in Landstuhl, Germany had the particular smell that all military hospitals have. Disinfectant and floor wax and something else underneath that might have been fear or might have been hope or might have been the simple exhaustion of people who have been holding things together for too long. Maya Reeves woke up in a room with white walls and fluorescent lights and the steady mechanical beep of a heart monitor that told her she was alive before her brain fully registered the information. Her left arm was immobilized in a cast from shoulder to wrist. The pain was there but distant, cushioned by whatever they had given her through the IV line that ran into her right hand. She turned her head slowly. The movement made the room tilt slightly, but she waited and it stabilized. Marcus Cross was sitting in a chair by the window. He had the look of a man who had been sitting there for a considerable amount of time. His uniform was clean, but his face showed the specific kind of tiredness that comes not from lack of sleep, but from carrying weight. When he saw her eyes open, he stood up and walked to the bedside. "You're awake," he said. "How long?" 3 days. The transmission, completed successfully. All 3 servers confirmed receipt. The information is already in the hands of the Senate Intelligence Committee, the Inspector General's office, in the Justice Department. He paused. "It's over. You did it." Maya closed her eyes for a moment. 3 days. The last thing she remembered was the ridge and the pain and the sound of helicopter rotors and Mitchell's face looking down at her. "Caldwell?" Marcus pulled the chair closer and sat down. His hands rested on his knees with the careful stillness of someone delivering news that requires precision. Warren Caldwell was arrested 6 hours after the transmission completed. FBI took him at his home in McLean, Virginia. 2 U.S. Marshals and a senior counterintelligence agent. He tried to run, made it as far as his garage before they caught him. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. Apparently, he kept a go bag in his Mercedes, $200,000 in cash, 3 passports, a handgun he never got the chance to use. "Good," Maya said quietly. The arraignment was yesterday. 17 counts of espionage, conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice. The prosecutor said they have enough evidence to put him away for 3 consecutive life sentences. He paused. "The evidence your father collected, the evidence you and Sokolov preserved, it's airtight. Every bank transfer, every communication, every operation. The defense already knows they can't win. They're trying to negotiate a plea. Will he take it?" Marcus shook his head. "No, he still thinks he can beat it. Still thinks he was right. The prosecutor told me Caldwell's official statement is that he was running a deep cover counterintelligence operation that no one else was cleared to know about. Maya looked at the ceiling. The fluorescent lights made geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. My father knew, she said. Knew what? That men like Caldwell never think they're wrong, never believe they've betrayed anything. They convince themselves they're the only ones smart enough to see the real picture, the only ones willing to make the hard choices. She turned her head to look at Marcus. My father said the most dangerous people aren't the ones who know they're doing evil. They're the ones who think they're doing good. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his uniform jacket and pulled out an envelope. Yellowed paper, old tape across the seal that had gone amber with age. He gave this to me, Marcus said. February 2007, the night before his last mission. He said, give this to my daughter when she's ready. He said I would know when. He held it out. You're ready. Maya took it with her right hand. Her name was written on the front in her father's tight, precise handwriting. The handwriting she had seen in notebooks and birthday cards, and the last entry in his operational journal that said, legacy isn't what you build, but who keeps building after you're gone. She looked at the envelope for a long time. Then she looked at Marcus. He knew, she said. He knew he wasn't coming back. I think he suspected. He was careful about things in a way that suggested he was preparing, making sure everything was in order. Did he say anything else? Marcus nodded slowly. He said to tell you that precision isn't just about shooting. It's about knowing when to shoot and when not to. When to fight and when to wait. When to hold position and when to fall back. He paused. He said you would understand what that meant when the time came. I do, Maya said. She opened the envelope carefully. The paper inside was folded in thirds. 3 pages. Her father's handwriting. She began to read. The letter was not long, but it was complete. It said everything that needed to be said in exactly the number of words required to say it and no more. That was how her father had written everything. Precisely. It began with an apology for not being there, for leaving her with questions she would have to answer herself, for the weight she would carry. Then it moved to explanation. He had found evidence of treason in March 2006, had spent 9 months building an airtight case, had been ready to submit it through official channels in December. But someone had leaked. Someone had told Caldwell. And once Caldwell knew, the outcome was inevitable. I'm writing this on February 13th, 2007, the letter said. Tomorrow they will send me on a mission with bad intelligence. I know I won't be coming home. I'm going anyway because if I don't, they'll know I know. And if they know I know, they'll come after you. So I'm going to give them what they want. I'm going to walk into the trap they've set. And I'm going to make sure that when I'm gone, the evidence survives. I've hidden it in 3 places. One you know about because you've already found Sokolov. The other 2 are insurance. The first is physical. Documents, photographs, recordings, things that can't be hacked or erased. I've buried them in Montana, 300 yards due east from the old oak tree where I taught you to shoot. 3 feet down in a waterproof case, combination lock. Your birthday. The second is in a safety deposit box at First National Bank in Billings. Box 2847. The key is in my effects. They'll give it to your aunt when they give her my personal belongings. Both locations contain enough evidence to finish what I started, but only if you choose to finish it. And that's what I need you to understand, Maya. This is not your fight. You didn't start this. You don't owe me anything. If you want to take the evidence and give it to the authorities and walk away and live your life, that's what you should do. But if you choose to finish it, if you decide that 34 dead Americans deserve justice and 1 corrupt official deserves consequences, then I've left you everything you need. I've taught you how to shoot, how to move, how to survive, how to think like an operator and act like a ghost. I've given you every skill I have, but the most important thing I can give you is permission to choose. You don't have to be me. You don't have to finish this. You can be whoever you want to be. But if you choose to be the person who finishes it, know that I'm proud of you. Not because you're my daughter, because you're you, because you're precise and careful and you understand that justice isn't about revenge. It's about making sure the scales balance. Stay precise, kiddo, in everything, not just shooting. I love you more than anything in this world. The letter was signed with his name and dated February 13th, 2007. 17 years ago, 1 day before his final mission. Maya read it twice. Then she folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope and held it against her chest with her good hand. She did not cry. She had cried enough over 17 years. She had cried when they gave her aunt the folded flag. She had cried when she opened his notebooks and saw his handwriting. She had cried when she turned 17 and he was not there for it. But she did not cry now. Now she just felt the weight of 17 years settle into a different shape. Not lighter, just different. The shape of something completed instead of something being carried. Marcus sat quietly and let her have the moment. He had been a SEAL for 19 years. He understood that some moments do not require words. After a while, Maya spoke. "The medal," she said. "You gave it to me on the helicopter." "Yes. Where is it now?" Marcus reached into his other pocket and pulled out the small wooden box. Opened it. Inside was the Medal of Honor that Daniel Reeves had earned but never officially received because the mission that killed him was classified, and classified missions do not get public ceremonies. The medal rested on blue velvet that had faded slightly with age. The ribbon was still bright. The star was still polished. "It's yours," Marcus said. "He earned it. They never presented it. I've been carrying it since 2007, waiting for the right person to give it to. I'm not the right person. I didn't earn it. You earned it on the Eastern Ridge. You held that position with a hole in your arm against a professional kill team for 43 minutes. You made shots I've never seen anyone make. You saved my life and the lives of my team, and you made sure the evidence reached the people who needed to see it." He closed the box and set it on the bedside table. "Your father earned it for what he did. You earned it for what you finished. That makes it belong to both of you." Maya looked at the box for a long time. Then she looked at Marcus. "Thank you for carrying it," she said. "It was an honor." They sat in silence for another moment. Then Marcus stood. "I need to brief you on what happens next," he said. "There's going to be an investigation. Multiple investigations. DOD, CIA, FBI, Senate. They're going to want to talk to you extensively. I know. Your status is complicated. You're not active duty. You're not officially attached to any agency. The mission you were on was unauthorized from your perspective since you inserted yourself without Caldwell's knowledge." He paused. "The good news is that no one wants to prosecute you. The evidence you helped deliver is too valuable. The optics are too good. Daughter finishes father's mission. Justice after 17 years. The story practically writes itself. The bad news is that you're going to spend the next 6 months in debriefings. They're going to want to know everything. How you knew, how you planned it, how you got positioned on my team. Every detail." "Can I refuse?" Marcus smiled slightly. "You can, but I wouldn't recommend it. These people hold grudges. If you cooperate fully, if you give them everything, they'll let you walk away clean when it's done. If you make it difficult, they'll find ways to make your life complicated. What do you recommend?" "Full cooperation. Answer every question. Provide every detail. Be the helpful witness. Then when it's over, you disappear." "Into what?" "Whatever you want. You're 27 years old. You have skills that most special operations personnel spend a decade developing. You can do anything." He looked at her directly. "Or you can do nothing. You've earned the right to be done." Maya thought about this, about the last 17 years, about the foster homes after her mother died when she was 19, about the jobs she worked to pay for the training she needed, about the certification she earned and the contacts she cultivated and the careful patient work of positioning herself exactly where she needed to be when the time came. About the ridge and the rifle and her father's voice in her head saying, "Stay precise." "What do you want?" she asked Marcus. "What do you want me to do?" Marcus sat back down, leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. "I want you to help me build something," he said. "Build what?" "A training program. Integrated combat medicine. We take experienced operators and we train them to think like medics. We take experienced medics and we train them to think like operators. We teach them that healing and fighting aren't opposite skills. They're complementary skills." He paused. "Your father understood that. He was a sniper, but he knew more battlefield medicine than half the corpsmen I've worked with. He said once that keeping people alive is harder than killing them and more important. I want to build a program that teaches that, and I want you to run it." "Why me?" "Because you've done both. You've saved lives and you've taken them. You know the difference. You know when each one is necessary. That's the rarest skill in the world." Maya was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Where?" "Fort Bragg, North Carolina. We have funding. We have facility space. We have command support. All we need is the right person to lead it." "And you think I'm the right person?" Marcus smiled. "I think your father was the right person and he's not here. So you're the next best thing. Maybe better." "What would it involve?" "Teaching, curriculum development, some operational consulting. You'd have autonomy. You'd build it the way you think it should be built. No bureaucracy, no oversight beyond basic accountability. How long? 2 years minimum. After that, if you want to stay, you stay. If you want to leave, you leave. Maya looked at the window. Outside, the German sky was gray and even. The kind of sky that suggests rain, but never commits. I'll think about it, she said. That's all I ask. Marcus stood again. He walked to the door, then he stopped and turned back. One more thing, he said. Sokolov wants to meet you. He's in protective custody, but he's been asking about you since you got here. Says he owes you an explanation. For what? Marcus shook his head. He wouldn't tell me. Said it was something your father made him promise. When? Tomorrow, if you're up for it. The doctors say you can have visitors once you're mobile. I'm mobile now. Marcus smiled. I'll let them know. He opened the door, paused again. Your father saved my life twice, he said. 2006. I never got to thank him, so I'm thanking you instead. He left before she could respond. Maya sat in the hospital bed and looked at the letter and the metal and thought about choices, about the choice her father had made to walk into a trap knowing he would not come back, about the choice she had made to spend 17 years preparing to finish what he started, about the choice she was being offered now to do something different, something that might matter in a different way. Precision isn't just about shooting, her father had written. It's about knowing when to shoot and when not to. She was beginning to understand what he meant. Viktor Sokolov came to her room the next afternoon. He was thinner than he had looked in the photographs. Older. The kind of age that comes from stress rather than years. He walked slowly with the careful deliberation of someone who has learned not to make sudden movements. 2 federal agents accompanied him but waited outside. He sat in the chair Marcus had used and looked at her with the steady evaluation of a man who has spent a lifetime assessing people. You look like him, he said finally. Not the face, the eyes. He had the same eyes, patient, calculating, missing nothing. Thank you, Maya said. He smiled. It is not a compliment. Those eyes see too much. They make it hard to sleep. They were quiet for a moment. Then Sokolov leaned forward. I made your father a promise, he said. In 2006, when we were building the case, he asked me for something and I gave him my word. What did he ask? He asked me that if he did not survive, if something happened to him before the case was complete, I would wait. I would preserve the evidence. I would not move until his daughter came for it. How did he know I would come? Sokolov looked at her with something that might have been sadness or might have been respect. He said you were 9 years old and you could already shoot like a Marine sniper. He said you understood precision. He said if anything happened to him, you would spend however long it took to learn everything you needed to learn, and then you would come. He was right. Yes, he was right about many things. Sokolov reached into his jacket and pulled out a USB drive. Small, black, unmarked. This is for you, he said. Your father gave it to me 2 days before he died. He said, do not give this to anyone, not authorities, not military, not even Marcus Cross. Only my daughter, only when she is finished. What's on it? Everything he wanted you to know. Things he did not put in the letter because letters can be read by the wrong people. Things he did not put in the evidence because they were personal. He held it out. He loved you very much, more than the mission, more than the evidence, more than justice. He made me promise I would tell you that you were not the second choice. You were always the first choice. The mission was just what he did while he was waiting to come home to you. Maya took the USB drive, held it. It was warm from Sokolov's pocket. Thank you, she said. Sokolov stood. He moved like a man who has learned that farewells should be brief. You have given me my life back, he said. I have been hiding for 9 years. 9 years since Caldwell discovered I survived his first attempt to kill me in 2015. 9 years in safe houses, looking over my shoulder, wondering if today would be the day they found me. He paused. Now Caldwell is in prison. His network is destroyed. The SVR handlers are expelled. I am free to live whatever years I have left in peace. He looked at her directly. Your father gave me that gift. You delivered it. I will not forget. Then he was gone. Maya sat holding the USB drive and the letter and the knowledge that her father had thought of everything, had planned for every contingency, had left her not just the tools to finish his mission, but the permission to choose whether to finish it at all. She thought about that, about choice, about the difference between obligation and decision. And she understood something she had not understood before. Her father had not died to give her a mission. He had died to give her a choice. And the choice he had given her was not between revenge and justice, or between duty and freedom. The choice was between being defined by what had been taken from her or being defined by what she chose to build. It took her 3 weeks to be cleared for discharge, 3 weeks of physical therapy and debriefings in medical evaluations, 3 weeks of telling the story over and over to different investigators in different rooms with different agendas. She told them everything, the whole truth, how she had found Sokolov's initial contact information in her father's effects, how she had spent 2 years cultivating the approach, how she had trained, how she had positioned herself, how she had waited. They asked if she had broken any laws. She said yes, several. She had accessed classified information without authorization. She had misrepresented her credentials. She had engaged in combat operations without proper authority. They asked if she regretted it. She said no, not even a little bit. They asked what she wanted. She said justice for 34 Americans and consequences for the man who betrayed them. They said she would have both. On the day of her discharge, Marcus came to her room one final time. He brought clothes, civilian, jeans, and a sweater and a jacket that fit. "You're officially cleared," he said. "No charges, no restrictions. You're free to go. Where? Anywhere you want. But I'm hoping you'll come to North Carolina first. For the program. For the program. We start building the curriculum in 6 weeks. I want you there." Maya thought about Montana, about the field where her father had taught her to shoot, about the oak tree and the buried case 300 yards east, about the evidence she still needed to retrieve. "I need to go home first," she said. Marcus nodded. "Take the time you need. When you're ready, call me." He handed her a card with a phone number written in his precise handwriting. "That's my direct line, anytime, day or night." "Thank you." Marcus hesitated. Then he said something he had clearly been preparing to say. "Your father and I served together for 7 months. That's not long by military standards. But in those 7 months, I learned more from him about being a professional than I learned in the 5 years before that. He taught me that the job isn't about being the toughest or the fastest or the best shooter. The job is about being the most reliable, the person who shows up, the person who stays, the person who does the work even when no one is watching." Marcus paused. "You're that person. You showed up, you stayed, you did the work. Your father would be proud of you, but more importantly, you should be proud of yourself." He left before she could find words to respond. She flew to Montana 3 days later, rented a car in Billings, drove to the house where she had grown up. It was empty now. Her aunt had moved to Arizona 2 years ago for her health. The house was for sale, but no one had bought it yet. She stood in the driveway for a long time, looking at the windows she had looked out of as a child, at the porch where her father used to sit in the evenings, at the garage where he had kept his rifles and his reloading bench and all the tools of precision. Then she walked around back, through the yard, into the field beyond. The oak tree was still there, older, thicker, the branches spread wide against the November sky now. She walked 300 yards due east, counted her paces. At exactly 300 yards, she stopped and looked around. Nothing marked the spot, no sign, no indication, just grass and dirt and the certainty that her father had stood here 17 years ago and buried something for her to find. She had brought a shovel. She dug. 3 feet down, just like he had said, she found the case. Military grade, waterproof, combination lock. She entered her birthday. The lock clicked open. Inside were documents, photographs, USB drives. Everything her father had promised. Everything she would need if the primary evidence had somehow been lost or destroyed. But there was something else too. At the bottom of the case, wrapped in plastic, was a rifle scope. The exact model he had used. The exact model she had used on the Eastern Ridge. And on the turret cap was a strip of blue tape, applied at a diagonal across the left corner. Always the same way. Underneath the scope was a note in his handwriting. "When you're ready to teach someone else, use this. Pass it on." That's what legacy means. Maya sat in the Montana field with her father's scope and his note, and the evidence he had buried 17 years ago. And she cried. Not from sadness, not from grief, from the simple, overwhelming weight of being known completely by someone who was no longer there to tell you that everything would be okay. But it was okay. She knew that now. It had taken 17 years, but it was okay. She filled in the hole, carried the case back to the car, drove to Billings, retrieved the second cash from the safety deposit box, combined everything into one secure package. Then she drove to the field where her father had taught her to shoot. The grass was golden in the late afternoon light. The wind came down from the mountains with the smell of winter coming. She stood where he had stood, looked at where the deer had been all those years ago, where she had fired her first shot and missed by 2 feet, and learned that missing was just information. "What did you learn?" her father had said. "That the wind was stronger than I thought." "Good. Now you know. Fire again." She had hit the second shot. Standing there now, she understood what he had been teaching her. Not shooting, learning. The precision of learning from failure without letting failure define you. She stood in the field until the sun went down and the temperature dropped and the stars came out in the clear Montana sky. Then she got in the car and drove to the airport and flew to North Carolina. Marcus met her at Fort Bragg 6 weeks later. He had an office prepared, a curriculum outline, a roster of candidates for the first class. He also had something else. "The official ceremony is in 3 weeks, he said. "The Medal of Honor for your father. They're doing it properly this time. Public, press, full honors. The president will present it." "To who?" "To you, as his next of kin." "I don't need a ceremony." "I know, but the 34 Americans who died because of Caldwell's treason need people to know their deaths mattered. They need people to know someone fought for them. Your father fought, you fought. The ceremony is how we tell that story." Maya thought about this, about stories, about the difference between what happened in the dark on a ridge in the Cascade Range and what people would hear about it in a ceremony in Washington. "All right," she said, "I'll do it." The ceremony was held on a cold January morning in the East Room of the White House. 200 people attended: senators, military brass, families of the 34 Americans whose names had been read aloud. Maya wore her dress uniform, the one she had earned the right to wear even though she had never officially served. Marcus had arranged it, had pulled strings, had made it happen. The president spoke about sacrifice, about integrity, about the long arc of justice, about a Marine sniper who had discovered treason and built a case and died before he could see it through, and about a daughter who had spent 17 years learning everything she needed to learn to finish what her father had started. The president placed the Medal of Honor around Maya's neck, shook her hand, said something quiet that only she could hear. "Your father would be proud." Maya stood on the stage and looked out at the room and thought about precision, about staying steady, about the field that doesn't care how small you are as long as you're steady. She was steady now. After the ceremony, Marcus found her in the hallway outside. "There's someone here to see you," he said. He led her to a cider room. Inside, an older woman was waiting. Late 60s, gray hair, kind eyes. She stood when Maya entered. "I'm Sarah Mitchell," she said. "Doyle's wife. He couldn't be here today, but he wanted me to give you something." She held out a small box. Inside was a challenge coin. Old, worn, the kind that gets passed between operators as a mark of respect. "Doyle carried this through 3 deployments, Sarah said. "He got it from your father in 2006. Your father told him to keep it until he met someone who reminded him what service really means." She closed Maya's hand around the coin. "He said you reminded him." Maya held the coin, felt the weight of it, the history. "Thank you," she said. Sarah smiled. "He also said to tell you that if you ever need anything, anything at all, you call him. He owes your father a debt he can never repay, so he'll pay it to you instead." She left quietly. Maya stood alone in the room holding the coin and the medal and the weight of 17 years that had finally settled into something she could carry forward instead of something that held her back. 6 months later, the first class graduated from the Reeves Foundation Integrated Combat Medicine Program at Fort Bragg. 23 students, all experienced, all highly motivated, all taught that healing and fighting were not opposite skills, but complementary ones. Maya taught them to shoot, to move, to think, to stay precise under pressure. But more importantly, she taught them what her father had taught her, that the field doesn't care how small you are, it only cares whether you're steady. On the day of graduation, Marcus pulled her aside. "There's a phone call for you," he said. "Secure line, priority flag." "From who?" He smiled. "Deputy Director Caroline Vickers, CIA." Maya took the call in Marcus's office. The voice on the other end was professional, controlled. The voice of someone used to asking for things that cannot be refused. "Ms. Reeves, I'm calling because we have a situation. 17 sleeper agents from the SVR network your father exposed. We've identified 12. 5 are still active, still operating, still dangerous." Maya listened. "We need someone who thinks the way your father thought. Someone who can find people who don't want to be found. Someone who understands precision." There was a pause. "One of those 5 agents was Caldwell's primary handler, the one who ordered your father's death in 2007. He's still out there." Maya looked out the window at Fort Bragg, at the training facility she had built, at the students who were graduating, at the legacy her father had left and the legacy she was building. "When do you need an answer?" she asked. 72 hours. "I'll call you back." She ended the call, sat in the quiet office, thought about choices. Marcus knocked on the door, came in without waiting for an answer. What did she want? "They found Caldwell's handler, the one who killed my father." Marcus was quiet, then he said, "What are you going to do?" Maya looked at him, looked at the medal on her desk, at the coin Doyle had sent, at the photograph of her father that she kept in her office. She thought about precision, about knowing when to shoot and when not to, when to fight and when to wait. "I'm going to teach my class tomorrow," she said, "and the day after that, and the day after that. And then I'm going to call her back and tell her I'll consult on the operation. But I won't go into the field. That part of my life is done." Marcus smiled. "Your father would approve." "I know." She stood, looked out at the field where her students were celebrating, where the next generation was learning the skills her father had taught her and she was teaching them. "He taught me that legacy isn't what you build," she said. "It's who keeps building after you're gone." She turned to Marcus. "I'm going to keep building." Marcus nodded. "Then let's get back to work." They walked out together into the Carolina afternoon. The sky was clear. The air was cool. Somewhere in a prison in Virginia, Warren Caldwell was serving the first day of 3 consecutive life sentences. Somewhere in Moscow, an SVR handler was reading a report that 12 of his agents had been arrested and 5 more were compromised. But on the training field at Fort Bragg, none of that mattered yet. All that mattered was the work, the teaching, the precision of building something that would last longer than any one person. Maya Reeves stood at the edge of the field and watched her students and thought about her father and smiled. Stay precise, she thought, and then she got back to work. The field doesn't care how small you are. It only cares whether you're steady. And she was steady now. She would always be steady. I've researched hundreds of military stories, but this one stayed with me for months. What Maya Reeves did wasn't just revenge. It was 17 years of precision her father taught her, applied to the one mission that mattered most. That blue tape on the rifle scope, her father used it so his thumb would find the turret in total darkness. She kept that tradition alive. Question for you: if you discovered your father's unfinished mission, would you have the patience to wait 17 years to do it right? Or would anger make you rush? Drop your thoughts below.